is right now.
Coming to 6.
No standing still.
20 seconds.
Only one choice now.
Here we go. All right, come around 1. Stand by, Dr. Phil. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Today on an all-new Dr. Phil. Life after lockdown.
My 13-year-old is out of control.
You wouldn't understand.
It was just the blind leading the blind.
The only thing that's gonna help me is going to school.
This got to the point where you were ready to leave.
Financially, it's hard. Parenting our daughter is hard. Everything's hard.
How do you two get along? That alone can make a huge difference. Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today is going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
Get ready to take care of you. Well, you know, it has been 2.5 years since our country locked down during COVID-19 pandemic. Can you believe it? 2.5 years. Now, masks are off, shelter-in-place mandates have been lifted, and children have returned to school. But life is far from back to normal. Too many families have been damaged or even destroyed by loss of loved ones, financial stress, and being forced to live in close quarters with their loved ones 24/7, all while adapting to the many challenges of remote work and failed distance learning. We are finally emerging from the darkness, but I'm here to tell you that the handling of the pandemic has had long-term catastrophic effects on many families and individuals. Effects that we are just beginning to unpack. Take a look.
There has been a secondary and tragic pandemic running during the COVID pandemic.
It's the dramatic increase in domestic violence as victims have been shut in with their abusers.
New data is highlighting the alarming rise in drug overdose deaths in the U.S. Deaths has climbed since the COVID-19 pandemic started.
New data from the CDC finds that 1 in 5 children live with a significant mental health concern.
Children's Hospital of Colorado declared a state of emergency and youth mental health for the first time ever. Pediatric emergency departments were overrun with kids attempting suicide. Since 2019, the number of kids in need of emergency mental care has doubled.
Schools are back in session, but some students are still dealing with the consequences of the pandemic and what's being called a COVID achievement gap.
Did you feel like you were behind the other students?
My grades were really bad.
Since COVID, my 13-year-old is out of control.
You don't understand.
How can we help you, Ava?
The only thing that's gonna help you is going to school.
Well, what that young girl is expressing really illustrates my exact point. That was Deidre talking to her 13-year-old daughter who could not handle online schooling. Now, here to talk to me about this is Dr. Pearson. She is a legal and organizational analyst who's been covering the pandemic unfolding. And that's a lot to cover. Dr. Pearson, what we just saw in those last 10 seconds of that tape is the perfect example of the anger and frustration that children and teens were feeling and what parents were dealing with during this lockdown much of the time. Would you agree, the frustration?
It was a frustration about a lack of control over their circumstances and their ability to decide what they wanted to do because it was safer at home, so they say.
Yeah, so they say. A lot of things were frustrating to me going into this, and that was, it seemed like the information that was being given out seemed to be changing daily, contradictory oftentimes, and not really based on scientific evidence. Why is that?
Well, there's a really straightforward answer to this, and that is there was no plan followed. They were responding in the moment.
Oh, look, we're the most sophisticated country in the world, supposedly. We're supposed to anticipate and have readiness for all eventualities, right? And you're telling me that they shut down the #1 economy in the world, they shut down the schools, they wiped out thousands and thousands of mom and pop businesses that had been worked on for 40, 50 years, and pulled kids out of schools and created gaps that will never be closed. And it was a knee jerk.
So there are 3 factors here. There's motivation, there's knowledge, and there's infrastructure. There was a plan that existed. And in fact, just prior to the inauguration of the new president, there had been exercises where they went through this exact scenario. And that's the thing that is so infuriating. It was this exact scenario. And when it counted, 23 of the people who attended that training, if you will, were no longer in the administration.
So you're saying the Obama administration had a plan, the Trump administration put it in a drawer and adios to people that knew what was going on, and we were left with a huge information gap.
There was an information gap, motivation gap, and an infrastructure gap.
Did y'all feel like we were making this up as we went along at the time? Did it feel like you were getting a different message all the time? Wear a mask, don't wear a mask, do this, don't do that? If you're frustrated about it now, raise your hand about what took place. Okay. If you think, no, they did the best they could because this was something new, raise your hand. Yeah, I did not feel that way. And I said so early on. I said that the way they're doing this and shutting this down is going to create more problems than the virus itself. And I think those problems are just starting to unfold, and I think we're going to be paying a very high price for decades to come.
I agree with you.
Deidre, we just saw a tiny bit of what you've been dealing with at home over the past 2.5 years. Let's take a look.
I don't know how to put it into words, and you won't stop rubbing everything in my face!
My 13-year-old, she's vindictive, manipulative. She is a liar, a thief, just downright nasty. Whew. Boy, those words are hard to say about your own child.
Ava, this is heartbreaking.
You wouldn't understand!
We do understand. I don't understand that you lied. I don't.
You don't understand anything!
I surely was not prepared for distance learning.
There is no point to me of online school.
There is a point.
No, there isn't! There is no reward!
Her behaviors has affected everyone.
Stay out of my life!
She says openly how much she hates my son. Her actions really make me miserable. She has pushed me to the point of thinking about taking my son and just leaving.
Well, Deidre, you live just a half a mile away from a neighboring school district where schools were open and kids were doing just fine. They were actually going to class, right?
Yes, sir.
But she felt really isolated.
Very much so, she did.
And remote learning did not work for her?
Oh, it definitely did not work for her. 6th grade is the beginning of middle school.
Right.
So, you know, obviously with distance learning, we're on the computer and most kids had their cameras off, so she just was so disconnected.
Your husband, Jerry, is joining us virtually, and thank you for joining us as well. Jerry, you watched this unfolding, and when a child gets frustrated and can't master what's put in front of them and is not getting rewards from it, not having success experiences, it just got worse, and it got worse for her.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the hardest thing as a parent is to watch your child struggle and not have the tools or anything to calm them down or to take that pain away that's so obvious. It's a struggle.
Let me tell you, you guys didn't invent this problem. This was happening in homes across the country over and over and over again. It was a nightmare. I mean, it didn't work. Now, Simone, the pandemic struck just as you were entering your final 2 years of high school, correct?
Yes.
What was the impact? What was the feeling of that?
So for me, I'm a student athlete, so I've played basketball my entire life, and I really leaned on that to support me through college because I knew my parents weren't going to be financially able to do that. So I knew that basketball was going to be my key to getting in. But with the pandemic, I was shut down completely from that. So I knew I had to focus on academics and to get me to college. But my teachers were just really focused on trying to understand Zoom and online learning, so they didn't really have enough time to prepare us and teach us everything that we needed to know, especially going into college. So with that, my senior year, I was very, very ill prepared. I did not know that I had to make 2 different applications for my college and for the dorms. So I only applied just for the school. And now I am in college, have no dorms, and I go to school in LA, and I live in the Bay Area. So it's very, very hard for me.
Yeah. Did this have to happen?
The way that we could have avoided this is if at the local level where education happens, if we could have had a plan. We have plans for active shooters, but we don't have plans for what to do when we can't go to school for a long period of time.
They shut the schools down for 2 years. And when they shut them down, did they have a plan to open them back up?
No.
Because it seems to me that they should have had a plan to reopen the schools the day they shut them down. Coming up, I have someone who knows exactly about these problems that families are facing. We're going to add him to the conversation when we come back.
Parents aren't equipped to deal with that. The parents are fearful and depressed. So it was just the blind leading the blind.
And Deidre, this got to the point where you were ready to leave, right? And later, what are you proud of about your family?
I'm proud that we're still together.
So you're hanging in.
By a thread.
Okay. Well, we need to put the fun back in dysfunctional. 70 million children will be forever affected by what they've gone through with the pandemic, how things were handled when our country was locked down, the pandemic that they've endured. All of us will be. Now, Deidre and Jerry's 13-year-old daughter and Simone, Carrie's daughter, are just 2 of them. The good news is that help is here, and he has what I believe is the real beginnings of a roadmap to help families navigate out of the chaos and back into a healthy dynamic. My good friend and world-renowned psychiatrist, Dr. Charles Sophie, joins me today. His new book, Family Values, Reset Trust, Boundaries, and Connection with Your Child, does a deep dive into the issues so many parents face with their children, both pre- and post-pandemic, and gives tools to address the areas that need the most attention and gives guidance down a path that reconnects families to their values. Dr. Sophie, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
How much did this affect kids at all ages when they got isolated?
Significantly, just the very fact of the feeling of fear. Kids are scared, or we were all scared. There's a bug out there we could get. You can't breathe. You got to put this thing on your mouth. So anybody with anxiety issues, they got amplified. OCD started to, be emerging that may not have even emerged to that level of symptoms. So there's a huge amount of that. And the more anxiety people had, the more it spills into a mood disorder, and they're depressed. They have no treatment. They have nobody to help them, and they're stuck in their homes. And parents aren't equipped to deal with that. The parents are fearful and depressed. So it was just the blind leading the blind.
Mm-hmm. And Deidre, this got to the point where you were ready to leave, right? It just...
Absolutely.
You had all you could take.
Yes. It has definitely been really tough.
When you have a child that's been diagnosed with something even before all this, and then you don't have a teacher who's able to eyeball them during the day like they would in a school to be able to say their ADHD is out of control or they're not paying attention, it's up to you. While you're trying to work and cook and shop and parent and it's crazy.
Yeah, definitely. It's tough.
And nobody wanted this to happen, but you live with the aftermath about this. I mean, what's been your experience with this? What's the hardest thing that you guys are having to face in digging out of the pandemic?
Just on the laptop, I feel like I was teaching myself pretty much. Like, I had to go to get tutoring for help, and I already have anxiety, so with the COVID and just going out, I was a little scared. I missed interaction with college students, within how to stay inside, some anxiety worse. I mean, I'm better now, but I still miss like social interactions with college students.
Right. Yeah. And things you took for granted before are harder now, right?
Yeah.
Things you used to do just naturally, it's kind of hard to get back into that at this point. A lot of us have found that, right? You know, the thing that I love about your book, Family Values, is that you say this has to happen one family at a time, and there's got to be a plan.
Yes, because if you're going to rely on help in your community, charity begins at home. I talk about parenting beginning with you. If you're not a solid parent, you can't help your kid. You got to take over your house. You got to fix yourself. And nobody knows how to do it. So there's a simple book. It's not that hard. And then you at least get yourself grounded, and you have a foundation and a structure to then build within, and then maybe get outside help.
Yeah, relationships headed downhill fast for some people during the pandemic when faced with financial strain, anxiety, disagreements on how to parent children during the pandemic, how to get education underway, how to keep it going. We're going to talk about all of that after the break and how to find pride in your own family. We're going to talk about all of that when we come back.
Pick something and it's hard. Financially, it's hard. Parenting our daughter is hard. Everything's hard.
How do you two get along?
We took on a lot of financial hardship, and now more than ever, we struggle to parent our daughter.
We're polar opposites in parenting.
Carson is a dictator in his parenting.
I always feel like I'm the bad guy.
Our daughter is being done a disservice by constantly being around somebody who is so grumpy. Walking around with anger and irritation radiating off of him, and only feeling happy when he's playing video games. I would love to find a way to fix our relationship, and if not, how we move forward.
Oh boy, have you come to the right place. On the right day, at the right time. What's been the hardest thing?
I mean, pick something and it's hard. Financially, it's hard. Parenting our daughter is hard. Making sure that she is on the same path that other kids would be on if the pandemic wouldn't have happened. Like, she's 6 and she can't barely write. She can spot read, but you know, you feel so much pressure to have them be the best that they can be. And I mean, everything's hard.
Mm-hmm. Carson, do you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you two get along?
Not so well anymore.
It hasn't been good for a while, but the pandemic has made it very clear that, I mean, that we need to work harder, that we need to be better for her.
Mm-hmm. What are you proud of about your family?
I'm proud that we're still together. We're still making it work, albeit dysfunctional at times. I'm proud that every time we fight and I ask him to leave, he says, no, I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together. We're here. I'm here. I'm not leaving. I'm proud of those things, the trying and the wanting to be better.
Well, so you're hanging in.
Right. By a thread.
Okay. Well, we need to put the fun back in dysfunctional. Right. You're hanging in there. That's good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about having pride in the family and really focusing on the family unit as being something special. Talk about that, because that's important.
It's not just special. It's a very unique thing. And if you don't value that and respect it and respect each other, even when you're arguing, you still respect each other. He's able to say, I'm not going anywhere, even though you're acting crazy. You know, you just don't lose your mind because you come within a boundary of respect of each other. Yeah. There's got to be a limit because you value your family And what you value and how you build that is what's going to give Lorelai the view of the world. She'll go out and value the same things. But if you're beating the heck out of each other, she's not going to value it. So you have to have parameters, and that's built around a value system.
I remember one time hearing our oldest son telling a friend of his, "We don't do that." And they said, "Why not?" And he said, "Well, the McGraws just don't do that." And I remember at that point thinking, that's really a good thing. There's a standard that he just attributed it just because that's who we are, and we don't do that. How many of you grew up with that kind of code in your family? You can't wait for the government to fix it. You can't wait for the school to fix it. You've got to say, we're going to fix our family, and it begins with, I'm going to treat myself and each other with dignity and respect. I remember one time hearing our oldest son telling a friend of his, "We don't do that." And they said, "Why not?" And he said, "Well, the McGraws just don't do that." And I remember at that point thinking, that's really a good thing. There's a standard that he just attributed it just because that's who we are, and we don't do that. How many of you grew up with that kind of code in your family? Okay, some of you did, some of you didn't. That, to me, that's what family values. Yes. There's a really good foreword to this book. I wrote it. All right. But in the beginning of the foreword, it says he called this family values because he values family. Right. And that's so important because you've got to be able to say, we take pride in our family. And we treat ourselves and we treat each other with dignity and respect,
Absolutely, right? No matter what.
And it starts there. You can't wait for the government to fix it. You can't wait for the school to fix it. Right. You've got to say, we're going to fix our family, and it begins with, I'm going to treat myself and each other with dignity and respect. And you have a roadmap called SWEEP. Right. And tell us how that works.
It's just simple. It's 5 key areas of your life that you look at as an individual and as your family. And you get on a roadmap to the end goal of where you want to do to fix these issues that come up when you do that SWEEP assessment.
All right, and what are the S?
Sleep.
W?
Work, eating, emotional expression, and play.
Okay, and those seem real simple, but there's a lot more to each one of them. And the important thing is, and let me tell you something else too, this is a big thing. Just attending to something and having a plan, that alone can make a huge difference. Right. Just the fact that you say, you know what, I'm going to go home today and I'm going to pay attention to my family and we're going to have a plan. Nothing else other than just the commitment to pay attention to it will make it better. And then if you have a plan with real steps, really get better. Yeah. Now, Vanya says she and Carson aren't sleeping in the same room right now. So how important is sleep for Dr. Sophie's SWEEP method? More on that when we come back. She's got to feel overwhelmed. It's like everybody's sailing on and she's getting further and further behind. And at one point they just say, oh, what's the point? I'll never catch up. I'll just go smoke dope or sit out and watch the tree grow. Well, I'm here with Dr. Charles Sophie, who has been working with families across the country before, during, and post-pandemic. And he has seen firsthand the hardships families and children are facing inside and now outside of their homes. Inside the homes when there was pressure on. And, you know, as Dr. Pearson said, look, it doesn't matter how much you pre-plan, you can't plan for everything. Some of this stuff is going to sneak up on you, and you have to go into reaction mode and do what you can. And everybody did a good job in America. I saw people that I know it was hard. They lost jobs. I know that it was difficult economically, and they're wondering what's going to happen. Are we going to be able to pay our rent? Are we going to be able to get by, and then they would lose a loved one and it just break their hearts. And, you know, we kept taping. I think we did 29 shows from home. Some of them we did on cell phones. We did national television shows on cell phones propped up on cookie jars because people just had needs, and we just kept doing it. And I was so inspired by the spirit of people. But fatigue sets in, and it got hard for people. And now depression has set in with a lot of people, and loneliness has set in with a lot of people. And days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and we're now 2.5 years into this. And you'd been working on this book for a while, and I really pressured you to accelerate this because you say it starts at home with the family, and you've come up with this stepwise plan. And talk about sleep. Why did you start with that?
Well, because if we don't have a certain amount of time every night on a regular basis consistently for your brain to slow down and recharge, you're not going to be who you should be the next day. And every day that you don't sleep, you're less you every day. You're more intolerant, you're more irritable, you're not productive, you don't feel good, and then you have all this other outside stuff happening, you're really going to plummet.
And if somebody told me you have to make someone psychotic and you can control one thing, it would be sleep. That is so important.
Yeah, it's vital. Your brain needs to recharge.
Yeah.
And it needs to be quality sleep, not just sleep.
Right. Okay, talk about work.
Work. Well, for children, it's their 8 hours of schoolwork during the day. Is it the right setting? And now we know more than ever it's probably not the right setting for a lot of kids because it got worse. But is it the right setting? Are they learning, and are they getting out of those 8 hours what they should be? And for us, I mean, do we spend that time, 8 hours or whatever it is, in a quality, productive way? Do you feel a purpose? Whether you're staying home and you're a housewife or a house husband, whatever, or you're out doing something, you know, is it purposeful for you? Is it getting you on your path to your purpose?
Yeah, I think it's really important in talking to your children, and we've talked about this many times, is children tend to compare themselves. It's so important that you influence your child to compare themselves to themselves.
Right.
Like, how are they doing today versus how they were doing yesterday? Not how they're doing compared to the kid next to them or the kid down the street, because they don't know how that kid's doing. That kid puts on a social mask and comes to school and they go, oh, wow, they seem like they're doing great. Well, you don't really know how that kid's doing. You just know how that child appears to be doing. You know, encourage your child to compare themselves to themselves. You know, how was I doing yesterday in math or reading, or how am I doing yesterday in mood versus how I'm doing today?
Right.
That's the only person they control.
Absolutely.
And if they do that with their work, then they can learn that little advances add up to big results across time. And your daughter, I mean, she's got to feel overwhelmed. It's like everybody's seems like they're sailing on, and she's getting further and further behind. And at one point they just say, "Oh, what's the point? I'll never catch up."
Exactly.
So what the hell? I'll
She
just
doesn't
go.
even wanna try.
I'll just go smoke dope or sit out and watch the tree grow.
Right.
But what she's got to do is set some personal goals and say, "Look, I'm going to do some things for me today." And let me tell you, it takes 1,000 attaboys, 1,000 attagirls to erase one you're not good enough. And you got to catch her doing some things right if you have to hide behind a bush to do it. Because sometime during the day, she's going to do something right, something sweet, something good. Even if it's brush her hair, you got to catch her doing something right and say, I'm really proud of you. And that's about putting this dignity back in there. And, you know, you say you didn't get it filled out right and didn't get your dorm. Are you going to class?
Do you guys have a shared hobby?
Not anymore.
No.
Right. But you should.
I'm a really big fan of board games, so I'm trying to get Lorelai to do board games.
She's not. Look, I'm talking about a hobby for you two, to build your relationship.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm with you. Board games are like problems in a box.
Right.
Okay.
You say you didn't get it filled out right and didn't get your dorm. Are you going to class?
Yes, but I've missed class several days already, and we just started last week, so I'm just
Yeah.
a bit behind.
Well, how many days have you made it?
Only the first 3 days.
That's 3 days more than you did it before.
Yeah.
I mean, really, find something about what you're doing to say that's 3. Now, next week, I'll do 4.
I mean, build
Or
on
the
your
next week,
strengths.
I'll do 5. Really, you got to get off your back and give yourself some encouragement here. You've really got to do that and find your way back.
I mean, don't you think it's wonderful that you're commuting like that?
Yeah,
I mean-
I'm flying from home and back.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's a
which
lot.
is not a way to
It's
do
super
it,
stressful.
but
But you're doing it.
you've got to encourage yourself. You've got to come up with a plan here. And you talk about that you got to have structure and a schedule to this, and that's really, really important. So talk about eating a little bit.
Eating. I mean, obviously we eat every day. Do we eat good? Do we eat like the right foods? Are we eating with other people? Are we sitting there alone, isolated because of the depression or whatever that's happening? So it's eating properly, eating at the right time. Low blood sugar can really make a child or anybody act in a way that looks mental health, and it's really not. They just didn't eat enough, or they didn't eat the right calories. So really looking at when you're eating, what you're eating, who you're eating with, it all matters.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Like
Now,
garbage
talk
in,
about
garbage
emotional expression, because this is so important.
I mean, emotional expression has very many variations. One, for adults, it's intimacy. Is their marriage where it needs to be? If it's not, you've got to work on it, because that's the role model she's going to look for in a marriage. And, are you dealing with your own emotions as an individual? And then teaching them how to deal with their emotions, whether that's a feelings chart for a child. Some kids don't even know how to describe anger. They just do it. They need to be able to look at a picture and say, this is how I feel, if they can't articulate it. They shouldn't just be acting it out. So it's getting somebody in touch with the knowledge and their emotions, their head connected to their heart.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's P?
P is play. We all play. Play by yourself and play with others. So hobbies. Many people don't have any hobbies. Hobbies are very self-soothing. Things that you do by yourself, whether it's reading, needlepoint, cooking, gardening. You need that soothing therapy time for yourself, and then things you do with others, socialization. Do you guys have a shared hobby?
Not anymore.
No.
Right. But you should.
I'm a really big fan of board games, so I'm trying to get Lorelai to do
Well,
board
she's
games.
not. Look, I'm talking about a hobby for you two, to build your relationship.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm with you. Board games are like problems in a box.
Right.
I don't got time for that. Like,
Yeah.
I worked all day. I would say the last hobby we really had was Game of Thrones.
Absolutely.
Like, we made that a weekly
Right.
thing. Talked about the episode, talked about things, but
It's bonding.
yeah, it hasn't.
You need
There
to go
hasn't
back
been
to that.
any
Yeah,
of
you
that.
bonded over the massive destruction of the human race. I get it. That's good. But whatever gets you together.
Right.
So look, what's the first step in helping our most vulnerable children and families that were affected by all of this? It's really something that begins in your home with your family. We'll be right back. This country is in trouble right now. We know that. We know how divided it is. I've done topics here where I felt like I had to have on body armor with people so divided. There's divisiveness in this country right now. But let me tell you something. You don't want to be divided at home. And that's the key. You think it starts with this family unit, and if that falls apart, the society falls apart.
Exactly.
When we talk about having dignity and respect within the family, how does that start? What's the first conversation that you recommend people have in here when they sit down? Somebody has to be the one
The head of it.
that initiates, right?
Right. And puts out there, are we on the same page? Do we want to value ourselves? Do we value ourselves? Why do we want to be a family? What does that mean to you? What does it mean to you and each member? So that you understand what it means to each member, so that the value that you're going to have as a whole is a piece of everybody. And so when you build that value model and that's the goal, then you build the plan to work toward it. And everybody has a stake in it.
And the more awkward this might seem in your own situation, the more you need to do it.
Right.
Because this should be natural. This should be instilled in every family. It's been a long, long time since I was in high school. a long time. I had hair. It's been so long. But I remember a friend of mine was over one night, and this was the toughest kid I've ever met in my life. I mean, he'd fight a buzzsaw, and everybody was afraid of this kid. And we were getting ready to go out, and we were going down the stairs, heading out the door, and my mother said, whoa, where are you going? I said, well, we're going to the basketball game. And she said, oh, no, you're not, because it was really icy out. And you didn't argue with my mother, so we just turned and went back upstairs. And we got back upstairs, and this tough kid was looking out the window, and he had tears running out of his eyes. And I thought, man, he must have really wanted to go to that basketball game. And I said, you know, what's wrong? And he just turned around and said, I just wish once in my life somebody would care enough about me to tell me I couldn't go somewhere.
Amen.
Because of the roads. And I thought, wow, I understand why this kid's so tough and so mean all the time. So when you see that anger, you got to look past it. Right. And I just want all of you to really think about, what's my family stand for? Because if, you know, there are millions of people listening to this right now. If we have families that say, you know what, I got to quit bitching, and I just got to say, what am I doing in my family?
Yes.
Am I valuing my own family? Am I taking pride in my family? And are we living with dignity and respect and treating each other with dignity and respect? It's going to make a huge difference. And if they follow this stepwise plan that you have, then, you know, we can start walking our way back here.
On our own.
This is not a gap that can't be closed,
No,
and
not
we
at
are
all.
resilient people.
Yes.
And we can do this.
Make it work.
It starts with you. It starts at home.
Yes,
so
100%.
But congratulations
Thank you.
On this book. It really is good. I highly recommend it. I want to thank all of my guests today. A special thanks to Dr. Pearson. Thank you for weighing in with your perspective. I also want to thank you, Dr. Sophie, for sharing useful tools to help navigate through the mess and chaos that has been left for the past 2.5 years. His book, Family Values, Reset Trust, Boundaries, and Connection with Your Child, is now available for purchase anywhere books are sold. And I think everyone can benefit by having a copy of this in their home. And everyone in our studio audience today is going home with a copy. So all of you go home with a copy. For more information about today's episode, or if you would like to share your story, log on to drphil.com. If you want to add your voice to the conversation, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And if you're in the LA area, we'd love to have you join us up here on stage in our studio audience. Just go to drphil.com, click on Be Part of the Audience for all the details. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to my podcast, Fill in the Blanks, where I provide critical information on some of the most important issues that you guys are facing today. Robin does the same thing on her podcast, I've Got a Secret. She really talks to a lot of thought leaders about the secret to their success, the things that they've done to be innovative in this life and in this world. We will see you next time. Thanks for being here.